Hey everybody, Ryan F. MTG, and today we are talking about all the black cards, which this is the last color that we need to go through from the new set, Adventures of a Tiny Hero. And I'm excited because what I've seen from black, there seems to be some powerful and kind of more unique mechanics. But first up, let's not waste any time, let's talk about the first legendary creature, and that's Black Crown. This was actually my preview card that I showed off on stream 2-3 weeks ago. I got two preview cards, and this was one of them. So it's 6 MP for 1/9 with Rush, Heavy Pierce, Spillover. It also has attacking +1 attack. It also has, after taking damage and surviving, destroy a random enemy unit with 2 or less HP. Overall, this card is just a house. It does so much, right? That its stats, yes, they might not be tons of stats with the attack, but the HP is so high with 9, and this wants to deal itself, or not deal itself, but this wants to take some damage, have it be from opponents' units, or, like we've seen, there are a lot of monsters that ping you, or actions that ping your monsters to get the, extra credit, extra value, and then also it has Rush and Heavy Pierce and Spillover. Attacking it pumps itself. So overall, this is a ridiculously good card, and we'll be seeing a lot of this in the future. The last legendary black unit is Steel Headsman. This is 5 MP for 4/4 with agility. When played, if your deck has 5 or less cards, it gains +12 HP, and when your opponent uses an action, deal 2 damage to this unit. Let's first talk about the deck size, extra credit. A lot of these black cards care about how many cards are left in your deck. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's 5, 10, or 15. And we've kind of seen this mechanic, even though it doesn't have an official name, I'll call it a mechanic, in different colors, but black has tons of them. And you kind of have to think of, okay, base level, let's say I don't achieve that deck size, so I don't get extra credit. How good or bad is this card? And then how good is it when I do achieve that? So let's look at how, if you don't achieve this, how good is this card? It's pretty bad, right? It's 5 MP for 4/4 with agility, which that's actually pretty decent. However, it has the extreme downside of takes 2 damage every time your opponent plays an action. So that just means your opponent could play 2 quick actions and kill this right out. That does not feel good for 5 MP. However, if your opponent doesn't do that, it's 5 MP 4/4 with agility, so that is kind of pretty decent. But if you can get the extra credit of 12 HP, this is such a good card, right? 4/16 with agility for 5 MP, even though, yes, it will be taking 2 damage here or there, it has 16 HP. It's going to be around for a long time. Basically, this unit will have to be dealt with by a straight-up removal spell or something from your opponent. However, 5 cards or less is super small deck, right? That means basically this is like the last part of the game. So this is not an early or mid game. This is the last part of the game to get this. It is a legendary, so you can only play one of in your deck, and hopefully you don't draw it until later in the game, or even if you do, you kind of just put it away in the side of your hand, don't look at it, and then when you can trigger it, you trigger it. So overall, this is a good card, even though it seems somewhat situational, and it is situational, but it's so strong when you can hit that situation. Odogarn is 5 MP for 1/8 monster. After taking damage and surviving, give a monster unit card with an MP cost of 4 or less in your graveyard +1/+2 and return it to your EX pocket. This card's awesome, right? Base level 5 MP for 1/8, not great stats. 1 attack is not great, but 8 HP, that's kind of quite high HP for sure, and this wants to take some damage. And yet again, it can be from anywhere. And to basically get a monster unit from your graveyard back to your EX pocket, give it +1/+2 is fantastic. Yes, that unit has to be a monster, as well as it is 4 or less, but there's a lot of good monsters at 3 or 4. So overall, this unit definitely will be seen play in a monster-centric deck. Exella is 4 MP for 2/5 human. When played, give a random friendly creature unit death, destroy a random enemy unit with an MP cost 4 or less. So it's kind of interesting because this is a human. However, it wants to be played with Creature Tribe, right? And so that it can be a little polarizing. However, the fact is really good, right? It gives one of your creature units death, destroy MP 4 or less. That will destroy quite a few things, right, that people play. It is somewhat narrow since it is 4 or less, so maybe it doesn't hit anything. So this is somewhat narrow on the tribal aspect of playing human and creature, and then somewhat narrow of just 4 or less. But if you can deck build around that, and especially if the meta is tons of 4 and 3, and you know what, most of the time in any meta in Teppen, there's 4 and 3 units that you would love to get rid of. So I could see this definitely finding a home, even if it's a little narrow or harder to build around. Executioner is 6 MP for a 3/8 creature. Well, here's a creature. We were just talking about the creature tribe. With Heavy Pierce, it also says, when played, if your deck has 10 or less cards, destroy the unit in front if it has an MP cost of 6 or less. 6 or less is most everything, right? Yes, it does not hit every single thing, but 6 or less is so good. This card is fantastic, right? 6 MP for a 3/8 with Heavy Pierce is pretty good just by itself, and then destroying something in 6 or less is fantastic. Yes, your deck has to be 10 or less, but as you see later on, there are black cards that mill, and mill basically means taking cards from your deck and just throwing them in the graveyard, as well as just units and actions that are milling. And also, this could just be a more later game play. So if it is just a later game play and you don't really build your deck around it, maybe you are only playing 1 or 2 of these. But if you build your deck around it, you can definitely get your deck lower than 10 cards pretty consistently. Pop is 4 MP for a 2/4 creature. When played, if your deck has 15 or less cards, gain +1/+2. While on the field, reduce damage taken of 3 or less to 1. This is a pretty good card because 15 or less deck size is a lot easier to achieve, right? Because you don't even need to play that many self-milling cards to hit 15. This is just more of a mid to late game play. And 4 MP for a 2/4. Yes, those stats are kind of some stats that we see sometimes on 3 MP units, but it is just 4 MP, so those stats are nothing embarrassing. It gets +1/+2, so it's a 3/6. Also, with the damage reduction, this will just stay on the field for a really long time. It has 3 attack. So in a mill style deck, or self-mill style deck, I should say, this seems like a decent payoff for sure. Kind of a curve filler that's really good in and of itself. Dusu is 4 MP for a 2/4 creature, revenge +1/+2. When played, if your deck has 15 or less cards, gain +1/+2. Yet again, good, solid unit for a self-mill deck. Yet again, self-mill is taking cards from your library into your graveyard, and that's kind of a theme of black for this set. And 4 MP for a 2/4, yet again, not the best stats for 4 MP, but nothing laughable. It has revenge of +1/+2. That's fantastic. And if you can just on the front half get +1/+2, that is so good. So this, you can even play it. This could be your first unit or first card that you play in the game, and it doesn't feel that bad. So the worst case scenario is not the worst by any means. It's pretty darn decent. At best case scenario, it just gets extra gravy. So overall, I like this creature. Indigenous is 3 MP for a 2/3 creature with revenge +1/+2. Pretty darn solid in and of itself. We've kind of seen the revenge stats like that in a 2/3 for 3 MP before, and they're usually pretty darn good. When play, send 2 cards from your deck that don't have revenge active to your graveyard. So yet again, this is a very solid revenge unit. By solid, I mean a good revenge unit that also helps you to self-mill. This will be a 3 of in every single self-mill deck because it's very good in and of itself, helps you to self-mill. And I do like that it does have the clause of from your deck that don't have revenge active to your graveyard. So you don't have to worry about self-milling your bigger, beefier revenge units that you really, really want to draw. So that's just like extra clause that they didn't need to throw in there, but definitely makes the self-mill more powerful. Kip is 3 MP for 1/5 with flight. When played, if your deck has 15 or less cards, gain +1/+2. This card, fantastic. 3 MP for 1/5. The HP is a little bit more than you usually get for 3 MP, but the 1 attack feels kind of bad, but it does have flight, which flight is always good, even if it is just poking in for 1 a turn. 15 or less cards in deck is not the hardest to achieve, and getting +1/+2 is definitely really good because it becomes a 2/7. So overall, yet again, any self-mill deck will play this and will be pretty happy with it. Zamtrios is 4 MP for a 2/7 monster. It says attacking, deal 1 damage to a random friendly unit. This can deal damage to itself because it's just a random friendly unit. After taking damage of any kind and surviving, gain +1 attack. This card is very good, right? Because there's so many monsters that want to be hit and take damage, and this is enabling them to, throw 1 damage round, which is not tons, but it triggers those effects and can trigger this monster itself. So this is a very good monster to have in a monster tribe deck, especially for 4 MP for a 2/7. That's a lot of stats for a 4 MP unit. Ricardo Irving is 3 MP for a 2/4. Death, give a random creature unit in your hand or EX pocket +1/+2. This card seems fine to me, right? 3 MP for a 2/4, that's kind of like the good solid stats for a 3 MP unit. Nothing flashy. The death is good, I would say. However, it's not great. +1/+2 to a unit in your hand or EX pocket is really good. But I don't know. I don't know if I find a home for this because I'm not sure if Black is really going to have a human-centric deck, as well as this isn't really playing with revenge or something like that, but it is just a good base level of value. So maybe if that value is good enough, you just play it in a deck and it's fine, right? It's never going to be a powerhouse, but it's just this value engine. Great Gyros is 3 MP for a 2/5 monster. When played, sacrifice 3 life, give all other friendly units +2 HP. I like this card a lot because 3 MP for a 2/5 is a little bit better than you usually get for 3 MP. A 2/5 body for 3 MP is very nice. Yes, you are sacrificing 3 life, but hey, if you're playing Nergigante Spike Launch or something like that, that's a plus. And to give +2 HP to all other friendly units, that's a lot, right? If you have 2 other friendly units, that's +4 HP. That is fantastic. Also, this is a monster, so it would be nice to play this in a monster tribe deck because a lot of monsters, want to take damage, but giving them some HP could help them stick around for a little bit longer. So this seems like a great early play for a lot of monster decks. Or just, decks that want to lose some life and pump up your units. Zealot is 4 MP, 3/5 creature. When played, send 2 cards from your deck that don't have Revenge active to the graveyard. So yet again, this is purely just a self-mill card. And 4 MP for a 3/5, definitely not the best because we have seen 3 MP units have this stat line, but definitely not the worst. Like 3/5 for 4 MP is still pretty darn good, and you are milling too. So if you really, really care about milling and you are having a hard time milling, this could definitely be an enabler. I'm a little hesitant on this because I think there's just other cards that I would like to play more, but if the payoffs for milling are a lot better than they seem, as well as the milling factor seems a little bit harder to achieve, then Zealot will definitely just be a shoo-in for sure. Adjule is 3 MP for a 2/5 creature. With Ascend, gain +1 attack and Revenge +2/+4. I think this card is very good. 3 MP for a 2/5, I've said it in the past, I'll say it again, that's good stats. Ascend, you ascend over a unit that's pretty darn weak, it's got injured, it gets +1 attack, so now it's a 3/5, and Revenge is +2/+4 on a 3 MP unit. That's fantastic. So this is a very good just value card. Yes, it's not a monster or something like that, but it's a creature, right? You might play a creature or focus deck, or just a revenge package, because this is a very good revenge card. Beelzebub is next. It's 3 MP for a 3/1 demon with flight, and when played, you explore for cruelty. Overall, I think this card is pretty decent, not super flashy, but I don't know if I'll really be playing it. Because 3 MP for a 3/1 is fine. I like the attack is pretty high, so in an aggressive deck you would like this, but the HP is so easily killable because it's just 1 HP, right? It has flight, so that's great. It gets in more with the aggressive style deck. and it is when you play you explore for cruelty, not when it dies. So you can play this explore for cruelty, and as long as cruelty is activated, all the criteria is activated, you can plus Beelzebub itself with cruelty and then have this bigger, beefier flight unit. So in a true aggressive deck, I do think that this could find a home. Anjanath is 4 MP for a 2/5. After taking damage and surviving, destroy a random enemy unit with 3 or less HP. So this kind of definitely fits the tribe of monsters that, when they take damage, they have some effect. Let's look at the stats though. 4 MP for a 2/5. Not the best stats, because it seems like some of these stats are kind of getting very, very high, but definitely not the worst, right? 4 MP for a 2/5 is solid. It wants to take damage, and it's only at 5 HP, which is somewhat weak, but this could easily take a hit or 2 hits. And you do get to destroy something with 3 or less HP. That is a little narrow, because 3 or less HP does mean that it has to be pretty weak. However, this has 2 attack, right? So if it can hit something and then finish it up with the 3 or less HP. So overall, I do think that this is a pretty darn good monster card. And I feel like I've said that a lot, which is kind of nice, because if monsters have all these really good shoo-in cards and then these good filler cards, you can kind of pick and choose between the filler cards to really make that deck tone and good. The last black unit is Balrog. 4 MP for 1/7 human. When played, if another friendly human unit is on the field, gain +2 attack. I think this card is very good. Obviously, you want to be playing this in a human deck, because if it's not a human deck, it's 4 MP for a 1/7, which those stats are actually pretty darn good. 1 attack is very low for 4 MP, but 7 HP is definitely above the bar. But if you're playing in a human deck, you always turn it on, which wouldn't be the hardest. You play your other human first, then this. It gets +2 attack, so it's 4 MP for a 3/7, and that's very good. So as long as you can turn Balrog on and get the +2 attack more times than not, which it's pretty easy, all you need to do is have just one unit on one other friendly human unit on the field to do that. This card is pretty good and will be a nice curve filler for the human deck. Time to look at the black action cards. First up with the legendary Return of the Heretics. It's 5 MP. Return 2 black units from your graveyard to your EX pocket with their MP cost half rounded up. If your deck has 5 or less cards in it, give those units +2/+2. I think this card is fantastic, and I will soon be testing it with Ouroboros, because yes, it doesn't place it on the field, but it has their MP cost by half. Yes, it's rounded up, but that's great, because if it's a 6 MP unit, I'm looking at Tyrants and such, it becomes a 3 MP unit. That is ridiculous. And it's 2, so it fills it up. It's not just 1, it's 2. So even if you do not get the extra credit of your deck being very small, that is still such a powerful effect. Then on top of it, if your deck has 5 or less cards, which is kind of hard, but not extremely hard, towards the later, if this is one of the last cards you're playing, because also you're resurrecting 2 cards to put in your EX pocket, they get +2/+2. Overall, I think this card is fantastic if you only get the front half, but if you get both of the effects, it just becomes extra gravy on top of it. Death's Executioner is 2 MP. Send 3 cards from your deck that don't have Revenge active to the graveyard. If your deck has 10 or less cards in it, give all friendly units on the field Revenge +1/+1. I think this card is very, very good, and definitely a payoff for the self-mill decks that black is kind of giving us, right? Because 1, it sends 3 cards to the graveyard, so it's helping the self-mill process. And then to give all your friendly units on the field +1/+1 and Revenge, that is so good. So I can definitely see this being played in quite a lot of black decks, because it is so powerful. And also, not even to mention, it's so powerful because it's giving more of your units on the field Revenge, which helps you to not deck. Because one of the scary things about self-mill is that you can deck, and yes, in Teppen you don't lose when you don't have any more cards in your library, but you don't get to draw anything more. So this kind of helps, because it just gives you more fuel in Revenge cards. Black Crown's Madness is 1 MP, sacrifice 3 life, remove 3 cards from your deck from the game, gain +2 MP. This card is fantastic. 1 MP actions, are super cheap. It's basically the cheapest you can possibly get to. So this is super cheap. Yes, you sacrifice 3 life, which is usually a downside, but you can play some life game to mitigate that. Or you're playing something like Nergigante Spike Launch or something like that you want to deal yourself life. And you get to remove 3 cards from the game. Yes, they do not go to your graveyard. It is like permanently exiling them, and you can permanently exile a revenge card, so that does make this a little bit more dangerous, but you gain +2 MP. This is great, right? Because, so this is like great for the self-mill decks, and it's ramp, right? You maybe are, because let's just say you do this not in the active response phase, you are only netting 1 MP, but you get to mill 3 cards. Not really mill, exile 3 cards from your library, and you probably already want to be doing this. So this card looks extremely powerful. Fists of Destruction, 3 MP with a feline. You're really trying to duck all these punches. It says, destroy an enemy unit with an MP cost of 3 or less. If there are 2 or more friendly human units on the field, destroy an enemy unit with an MP cost of 5 or less instead. This card is extremely powerful. Only for human decks, because just having 2 humans on the battlefield, you get to do 3 MP and you get to kill something 5 or less. That is extremely powerful, and if you're playing a human deck, more times than not you will have 2 humans on the field, or maybe you just have to wait around, play with it, but that's not that hard to achieve in a human tribe deck. If you're not in a human tribe deck, or if that is really hard for your deck to achieve, then this card is not worth it, because just 3 MP to kill something 3 MP or less, there's cards, Fate of the Unworthy, stuff like that are just better. Hidden Parasite is 4 MP, give a friendly black unit with an MP cost of 4 or more death, destroy the unit in front. I think this card is good, but not great, and overall I don't think I'm really going to play it that much, because it's somewhat situational, right? Because you have to spend 4 MP to give one of your units, so you have to have a unit on the board, so you have to play this in a deck with a lot of units, which isn't the hardest, but with a unit on the board, then it gives it the ability, then that unit has to die, then it kills something. There's just too many layers. On top of it, that's 4 MP. So overall, the effects are good because you can kill something really, really big with it. But I don't know, at this point, why don't you just play Obliteration or just some hard removal at 6 MP? I think that just seems more streamlined and better. Cursed Choice is 1 MP, so super, super cheap. Send 3 cards from your deck that don't have Revenge active to the graveyard. That's it. So this is strictly just a self-mill card, which can kind of be strange because it's like, do I really want to spend a card in my deck? So because you only have 30 cards in your deck, do I really want to spend a slot in my deck on this and spend 1 MP on this? And if the answer is yes, this is a super powerful card, because 3 cards is quite a lot. And if you are playing a solely dedicated self-mill deck, it could definitely be worth it. However, I'm probably going to be trying to play a lot of the self-mill style decks without this card, because this is one of, for sure, the weaker ones, where I would rather be playing some other things. However, it is just 1 MP, so it is almost pretty free to play. So if I could quickly learn, no, I want to get to 15 cards in deck a lot faster, then you throw Cursed Choice in, and you know what? The more I'm talking about this, the more I think this is just probably going to be a card that's a 3 of in a lot of the self-mill decks. Predation is the other card that I got to preview a couple weeks ago. It's 4 MP, destroy an enemy unit with an MP cost of 4 or less, and give a random friendly monster unit plus 3 HP. Overall, I think this is pretty good. It is not the best removal spell because it does cost 4 MP, and you do only get to kill something that's 4 MP or less, but that's even on MP, right? However, if you play this in a monster tribe deck and you get to give something, you get to kill something and give one of your monsters plus 3 HP, that seems pretty good. So this will not be in every black decks, but the black decks that want this, I think this will be a pretty good curve filler. Maybe not a 3 of, but a pretty solid removal spell. The last black action and the last card that we need to talk about from the new set is Gathering Malice. It's 3 MP, add 1 unit in your deck with Revenge active to your EX pocket. Memory 4, which Memory 4, not that hard of memory, right? Memory 4 is pretty trivial to achieve. Additionally, give that unit +1/+2. I like this card, right? If you are playing a revenge package, this is pretty nice because it's already pretty good value even without the memory of spend 3 mana to tutor up a revenge card, put it in your EX pocket. You might not necessarily play that because it just tutors it up, puts it in your EX pocket. It doesn't like put it in play or something. But with that memory, you +1/+2 is not laughable. So think about that. You get to get a revenge unit, which is already usually pretty cheap and pretty buffed in itself, and give it +1/+2. This seems like a really good card for revenge package decks. So those are all the black cards from the new set, and overall black got some really powerful toys. Definitely some toys for old decks like maybe Nurgiate Spike Launch or revenge decks, and especially Wesker or Burrows, which as a lot of you know, I really like that deck, so I'm really excited to play with some of these cards for that deck. And it brings to light this whole new mechanic of self-mill, getting some really powerful effects when you have less and less cards in your deck, and just giving us some cards to enable that. So it'll be really interesting to actually practice that, put it to the test of how good are these effects and how hard is it to get to 15, 10, 5 cards in your deck. But overall, this set looks really fun. I'm so happy that we we had to wait a while, but we finally have new cards, and overall these cards look fun, right? Hopefully nothing is extremely broken and come a couple days it's like, oh man, the meta is super stale. But for right now, it seems like the meta is pretty fun. When new cards come out, there's so many things to test and just have fun. So I'm excited we finally get to get back to it and just enjoy Teppen again, right? But thank you all for watching, and the next videos will be me testing out different decks, so I will see you all then.